why do COVID variants keep getting more transmissible? This chart shows how infectious different versions are compared to the original strain of the COVID-19 virus. Look how much better Omicron and its successors are at spreading in relation to variants earlier in the pandemic. Two main factors are giving the virus an advantage in its race to infect: how contagious it is, and whether our own defenses tip the scales. We'll also go over what all that means for our prospect of getting off the COVID variant treadmill. Let's start with how much better the virus is getting at infecting and spreading. One of the most important factors is its innate contagiousness. During the pandemic, variants have gained mutations that have made it easier for them to spread among people. Some have helped the variants bind to cells and then enter them. Many of these changes have sprung up in the spike protein, a structure on the surface of the virus that helps it attach to and enter our cells. Earlier in the pandemic, that alone could give a variant a significant advantage. The better a variant is at attaching, the more likely it will enter the cell to make copies of itself. But as we've developed antibodies and other immune defenses, that's put pressure on the virus to evolve and mutate in ways that allow it to evade antibodies. Which brings us to immune evasion. So let's go back to that chart again. Omicron was roughly 6 times more transmissible than the original strain of COVID. It had more than 50 mutations, with about 30 in its spike protein alone. Some of those made it easier for Omicron to get into cells. But other mutations made it more difficult for antibodies to bind to the virus, which is what keeps it from getting into cells. That viral combination, especially immune evasion, is what made Omicron more transmissible. And that's what drove last winter's spike in infections. If a variant is more effective at spreading, either because of increased infectiousness, better immune evasion, or both, it can outcompete other variants and become the dominant one. Again, that's what happened with Omicron. And then with BA2, which was almost 9 times as transmissible as the original strain of COVID. That's to be expected. That's what viruses do. They hone their genetics to become better at spreading. For instance, some studies suggest that BA5, one of the latest Omicron subvariants, has mutated further to evade antibodies, increasing its chance of escaping them. So, does that mean we're doomed? No. Scientists say they do expect to continue to see variants that are more transmissible and that outcompete previous versions of the virus. And more cases can mean more deaths. Some experts think there are limits to how much the virus can mutate, because too many changes could actually prevent it from getting into cells. It's kind of like if you bend a key too much, it won't fit in its lock anymore. But how good of an immune evader it can become is a different story. As new variants infect us, we gain immunity. Plus, our prior immune defenses can still protect us, but to a lower degree. Vaccine makers are also making updated shots that are tailored to new variants. In August, the UK became the first country to approve a COVID vaccine targeting Omicron, and other countries like the US are likely to follow. We're probably going to see more vaccine updates as we continue to coexist with the virus. If you're interested in just how infectious Omicron is and how it changed the course of the pandemic, check out this video I made, and see you next time.